We always say here at Ardoyne GAC, you know, we like to consider ourselves to be the heart of our community. That's on our mural at the end of Flack Street. We like to say that we don't take that for granted, that we keep giving back.
I think you notice, especially with this club, but all GAA clubs in Ireland, they're always one of the first organisations to step forward to help the community that they are part of. We are only part of the community. We aren't the community, but we play a vital role in that community. As you know, Ardoyne itself is an area that has suffered greatly throughout the conflict, and in more recent times, high levels of poverty and whatever. And the GAA isn't immune to that. I mean, our members come from this community, and this club especially. We have had several members who were murdered during the conflict. So even though we were part of the community, we weren't immune to what was going on around us. And this club played a vital role in supporting our community through that conflict. And then, as I said, in more recent times.
I'm standing here in Etna Drive, and this is a sort of a plaque in memory of a young member from our club called Seamus Morris. Seamus was only 18 and he played for our under-18 football team. A fantastic young player, a fantastic young person, well liked. Seamus was sitting on his wall again, talking to friends in his own street, just this street here. I think it's Highbury Gardens. And what happened was a car pulled around a corner and it had loyalist gunmen in. And these loyalist gunmen got out of the car, seen this group of young people, and they fired into the group of young people, killing Seamus. And Seamus died. And every year, our club members come round and they'll put wee flowers here just to remember Seamus and his family. And then we have Peter Dolan, and Peter actually was shot dead on the same day because Peter seen what was happening. Peter was driving a lorry at the time, and he tried to block the escape of the gunmen, and they got out and shot him dead as he sat in his lorry. So this is just in memory of young Seamus here, an Ardoyne Kickham's member.
When I grew up, again, back in troubled times, and I know my own mother and family tried to do their best to keep me away from and keep me out and sheltered from any trouble that was going on. But I do personally feel I was robbed of a little bit of my Irishness and my culture. My father had been put out of his own business on the Crumlin Road when the trouble started in the early days. We lived still in North Belfast, but we lived outside of the district. It was a very dangerous place to be. Involvement with the GAA in itself was dangerous to be involved and to be mentioned.
When I was walking around this area when I was young, so you would be stopped by British soldiers and this constant thing about being British, and this was my identity. This is who I was, and this was important to me to say who I was. When we get into the bus, and you have to remember, when we were playing under 16, for instance, our bus was known, and as I say, we didn't have a home pitch. And so if we would have travelled outside the area, the first thing we all knew in that bus, the driver, all the teammates, is that we were going to get stopped. And it didn't matter whether it was the under 16 team, the under 18 team, or the senior or junior teams, everybody gets stopped. We would have got stopped by the UDR, by the British Army, and sometimes we made it get stopped 4 or 5 times before we even got to the pitch. That was a reality in which we lived. We have lost, since that time, through the conflict, our club have lost a full team through sectarian murder. That's what's happened to us. And we also have lost people who have went to jail. So we'd lost a big part of that. Our club had been raided. Our bus had been stopped. And throughout all those times, we're still here.
I think at the last count, and that was before the Camogie started up again, we had 21 teams out there. If we need to have another 19 teams on the go, well then we'll work out how we'll get that going and how we'll resource it. But it's bring it on as our attitude first, and we'll work out what to do after that.
One of our big problems on here is that we have a pitch, but it's council owned, and so we have to find something like £30,000 every year just to pay for the use of that pitch. Now that pitch can be used by other sporting activities, so it can be used by soccer, but we have first preference. But there's 26 dedicated soccer pitches in North Belfast, but there is no dedicated GAA pitch, none. But if you look throughout Ardoyne, it's just all streets, and the old park's the same. It's all streets. There isn't really any play facilities. There's no real green areas there for young people to run about or to do anything. This area here, or this club, takes young people in, gives them a self-respect for themselves, an identity, and encourages them to make the right choices in life.
We are stronger now, I'd say, than we have ever been in our history. For the first time in a long time, we now provide all the sports, all the GAA sports for all codes and all ages. And as a club, we're only getting stronger. Our membership is growing year on year.
I certainly have memories of Casement Park and up there, watching the county matches and watching our own club play there at different finals, etc. I think for GAA as a whole, and certainly for clubs like ourselves stuck in the middle of areas like this in not just North Belfast, but all over Belfast, our biggest competitor is soccer. And the reason why, I believe the reason why it wins every time is because soccer is promoted, and is promoted by all the excellent stadiums that there are throughout Belfast and the province as a whole and the country as a whole, and we in GAA don't have that.
Casement will be the catalyst for the GAA in Antrim. Antrim is Ireland's second biggest city. It should be the heartbeat of the GAA in Ireland, and it has so much untapped potential that it's unreal. And Casement will be the shining light of that. It will be a modern provincial stadium. Antrim Gaels will get use out of it, but Ulster Gaels will get use out of it, and it'll be useful for Gaels all across Ireland. And what it will do is it'll give young people an aspiration. They'll see a massive state-of-the-art stadium in their own county, which they can dream of playing in.
It has definitely become symbolic for the people of Belfast who are interested in GAA, the stadium issue. And, you know, sometimes these things end up not delivering on the promise because it's just a stadium, right? But it has become a symbol of so much more, and that to get it built will require the community coming together and understanding what the issues that the residents have and negotiating with them, and maybe showing a pathway to better communication and how to better ingrain yourself in parts of your own community, because they should be able to make friends with the people of West Belfast to build the stadium, right?
Yeah,
they haven't been able to do that.
No, and it feels that there's probably maybe regrets on every side here about how things have gone over the last little while, especially from the very first situation when it first got planning permission and first got rejected essentially as a result of residents protesting against it. But what is interesting, I think, like often we have conversations around these big stadiums and, you know, what will it do for the community. I do think the GAA by and large has done okay when it's had these big grounds built or redeveloped, that it is a facility for schools finals, club finals, all that sort of thing.
You'd have to question the amount of white elephant stadiums that are never used or not busy during the year, right, around the country. Like, is the Gaelic grounds full as often as it should be? Is Páirc Uí Chaoimh often? Like, the women's teams had barely played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So I'm not sure that we've got a great track record of building stadiums that are actually going to be used by the communities and properly embedded.
Yeah. There does seem to be a real sense of optimism within the people that I was within Belfast, and the people that I was speaking to. This would be an asset, not an asset that's sweated, but something that's used by, as I say, schools finals, whatever, county finals, and not even that every young football, hurling, camogie player within Belfast would have an opportunity to play there at some point. Like, are the other stadiums being utilised like that? The two you mentioned, for example, I'd like to think that they are. Now, are they being used properly for commercial reasons is an entirely different thing, or are they actually having enough big games there? Because are there enough big games in the Gaelic Games calendar? I think that's actually a separate conversation. So, as we've seen from Cork this year, they're clearly not getting enough big games there. They do need the concerts to try and pay back their level of debt that they have, but I guess that's an extraordinary level and something entirely different. But at the same time, costs have risen on Casement over the last little while as well. This thing is a more expensive project. Who's going to pay for the rising costs?
The British government can pick it up, right? Come on.
If this residence appeal is turned down and then it does get to go ahead this year, like the DUP, I know, have said that the GAA should come up with the extra money for it, for example.
Well, somebody should pay for it.
Yeah.
Like, they should be able to work that out. Again, that's negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it gets to that point. That would be a
got
good
to
problem
the
to have.
DUP. Don't fancy the, you know, it's always tricky, but like they can always go over their heads. I mean, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It may be an easier negotiation after May when we see what happens in that election. But yeah, it's very interesting time. There's no sense anyway that this is unimportant. It's kind of a vital part of the jigsaw for Antrim GAA and for Ulster GAA as a whole, I think, from what we've heard.